I'm Liv, a junior at Renaissance, and you're listening to the West Ada podcast.
We have really great teachers in West Ada, and we have to be able to tell them something too. Like the best teacher that you have, like what feedback are you going to give them? How are we going to push them to be even better? We all want to grow.
Right? Sure.
And so I said, we need an exhaustive look for document.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the West Ada podcast. And I tell you what, we are joined by one of, there are plenty of innovative thinkers in West Ada, but one of the most innovative thinkers joins us today. Katie, amazing instructor.
Yeah, Patricia Vandenberg. Yeah. She is our math coordinator, curriculum instruction. And what is so amazing about her, and you'll see this in our conversation, she's not afraid to just jump in and go for it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get stuck in her ways. She's all about doing what's best and doing what's right and staying ahead of the research. And she's brilliant, and it was such a pleasure to get to speak with her.
Well, and it's okay. I think all the really cool, innovative people I've been around in life aren't afraid to fail,
right?
And so it's really cool to see her and our curriculum staff kind of inventing the wheel a little bit and going, "Hey, let's do some stuff that nobody's ever done before."
Yeah. Fail forward, I think, is a great term, and it's evidenced in our students' performance. Like our kids are achieving at great levels, and that's a testament to the work going on in the district. So take a listen; it's going to be great. We have a fabulous guest today, and I try not to be partial, but Patricia Vandenberg. She's our math coordinator of curriculum and instruction team. But Patricia, you're just such a great colleague to get to work with, and we're so excited to chat with you today.
Wait, let's just be honest. She's a math nerd.
She's a math nerd, but the best kind.
The best math nerd, yeah.
I know.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
I truly, sincerely, I wish that you could have been one of my math teachers in high school, because I think I could have fostered a love for math if someone had explained things the way you do and the way you coach. So we'll get into that, but welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, your background, and sorry for the math nerd comment, I just had to do that, but I've been able to work with you for 3 or 4 years now. It's been very cool. Your background, how long have you been in West Ada? Can you just give us a quick overview on your background?
Sure. So this is my 4th year in West Ada in this position. I'm the math curriculum coordinator, and it's definitely my dream job. So it's my 4th year in this position, but it's my 20th year in education. So prior to this, I was a high school math teacher. And I have grown to love math, and I think I wear the math nerd as a badge of honor. It definitely wasn't my first choice in subject to teach. Teaching wasn't even I didn't think I was going to be a teacher. And I remember in high school, so I graduated high school and I needed a part-time job. And so I got hired to be a clerk for a after-school program where students were getting their high school credit recovery.
Okay, yeah.
And so I was going to be the clerk, checking students in, checking out books, managing files. And my supervisor saw that I had taken AP Calculus my senior year in high school and said, "Hey, we really need a TA in the math classroom, so we're just going to put you there, okay?" And I didn't know any better or think to say no. And I was like, "Okay, put me wherever you need me."
Let's do this. Yeah, let's do this.
And math was my worst subject by far, and I struggled
you're kidding
with it.
me.
No,
I'm sorry, but didn't you just say AP Calculus?
Yes, and actually, I don't know how I passed that class. It was like by the skin of my teeth. And so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if I'm going to have to help these students, like tutor them, I need to understand. And I honestly, as I was trying to help students, I felt this like floodgate open in my mind of all the things that my teachers were trying to teach me that it was like stored in a place that I couldn't access. And it just started to click for me. And I think, and then I fell in love with teaching, and I just said, okay, I want to teach. And so then I started as an art major because I was like, okay, I love art.
Oh, wow. It's
Maybe
kind
I
of
can teach art.
diametrically
Both sides of
opposed,
your brain.
you
Good
think?
job.
Yes. And then I said, okay, I don't know if I can teach art and hold down a job. So let me also double major in English. So I was double majoring in English and art for a hot second as I was tutoring math. And I just said, what am I doing? I love teaching math. And so I crossed over to the dark side, and I decided to major in math.
How eclectic, how wild.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think where my success has been is I understand where students struggle in math, because I did too. Mm-hmm. Things just didn't click for me. They weren't natural for me. Like I had to really dig to find the connections, ask lots of questions. And so when students would ask me, I don't understand that, I can explain it in 12 different ways, because I would understand that where they were struggling. So I think that's been my strength. And for me, I love teaching math, and I view it as I view it as we're teaching problem solving and communication skills, and I just happen to use math to do that.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah,
I feel like we can make a little commercial out of that. But and I think that just speaks to your personality and your character, that you're just, even if something's scary, you're willing to dive in. I mean, you dove in as a TA right out of high school, being the clerk at the school. And then you also, while you were in your teacher preparation program in college, got hired as a teacher, like a teacher of record at a private school before you even were done with your bachelor's degree.
Yes.
Right? And started teaching math while you were still in school, learning how to be a teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So then you went on to teach for like 16 years, and then now here you are at West Ada, and you're our math coordinator. But explain to us kind of like what that is and what that entails.
Yeah, so this is really my dream job. This opportunity came up and I just said, that is what I want to do. That's where I want to be. And I get the opportunity to oversee math curriculum and instruction for our district, so K through 12 across all 58 of our schools.
Right.
And so I oversee the curriculum that is being used, and then I get to support teachers in high impact strategies. We really lean on the effective math teaching practices. And so we just get to support teachers. I am desperate for our students to learn math in really engaging and impactful ways. I want them to walk out feeling just really like mathematicians, because they are. And so I'm desperate for that. And so I just love every opportunity that I get to teach teachers, teach administrators, just work with everyone and just help them see how the math classroom can really just be a place of great learning and enjoyment and engagement.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just,
No,
with
go ahead.
58
Sure.
schools, that's a lot of math teachers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a team you work with, right? There's other math coaches that you work together, and they help go out and support the teachers and things like that, correct?
Yes, I have the most amazing team. I couldn't do it without any one of them. And so I have 6 consultants that work for me. So 3 that are elementary and 3 that are secondary. And they are just as passionate, if not more, about classroom instruction and how students access math, and just really kind of changing the idea of, we don't just tell students how to do math. We want them to really understand conceptually what they're doing, and building in mathematical discourse and helping them to be thinkers. Like, this is something that my team is really passionate about. And so, yes, I could not do this job. It's too big. There's too many teachers.
Oh, I can't imagine the moving
We're a
parts.
huge district.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're so amazing. I really have been so blessed by them. They work so hard. And they love working with teachers. So
that's cool. Well, and pulling out just a little bit, I assume that all of the curriculum and instruction staff, the entire team, there are different subject matters. Can you expound on that? I assume everyone's doing kind of the same thing depending on the subject matter. Is that a fair assessment of how things work?
Yeah. What's the structure?
yeah. So Dr. Dustin Barrett is our director of curriculum, and so he oversees all of the coordinators. And so there's a coordinator for every content area. And then underneath each coordinator are consultants in varying numbers for each of the content areas. But we all work on writing curriculum and supporting teachers.
That's really cool.
That's
Really
awesome.
cool.
And, we just happen to be recording on a Wednesday. And so I know our teams throughout the district are meeting on Wednesdays to PLC. Education's great. We have lots of acronyms.
Yes.
PLC is Professional Learning Community. Will you explain that a little bit for our listeners? Like, what is a PLC?
Yeah, so a PLC is a group of educators. Typically at a school, it will be like at an elementary school, it'll be the grade level team. So it'll be all the 3rd grade teachers, let's say, and they form a PLC. At the high school level, it might be by department. So all of the ELA teachers or all of the math teachers. And sometimes they even break down into like the different courses. But it's a group of educators that are really coming together to analyze. Really what they should be doing is analyzing their data and looking at, are we being successful at raising student achievement? Like, are students learning what they're supposed to be learning?
Are we raising the bar kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
on a regular basis too. And so PLCs, it's important that they're meeting regularly and that they're looking at their practices and they're looking at their student growth and student learning and seeing, okay, what areas can we improve? It's this idea of continuous improvement. And so it's this opportunity. It's a group that says, okay, hey, we're going to be committed to this growth and continuous improvement of our students. And so we want we want to look at whatever data we're collecting, whether it's classroom data or maybe larger, our benchmark district data. And they're just looking and seeing, okay, like how can we grow? How can we grow as a team and serve our students better?
Now, these are continuing conversations that happen. I imagine they happen more than just one time, but they happen Wednesday mornings during the late start Wednesdays, right?
Yes. So that's our collaboration time. And a big part of the PLC process for that to work is you have to have regular time to meet and collaborate. Regular time with your team to sit down because it's continuous. It changes from week to week. And so that's what we do on Wednesday mornings.
Well, and I think as parents, we all kind of know, like, okay, it's late start Wednesday, and all I'm like is I have longer to eat my breakfast or whatever when I was a parent.
Yeah.
But also professional learning days, same kind of idea. Can you tell us why we do professional learning days and what that for the parents out there listening, they may not know what we're really doing on professional learning days. What's that look like?
So we are so fortunate in our district to have 4 professional learning days scheduled throughout the year. And it's really a time for us to stop and invest in our teachers and to invest in our teachers and our staff and just to say, hey, we're going to pause. We're going to take a minute and we're going to continue our learning. We're constantly learning in this district. And so we stop and say, okay, what do we need to learn? What do we need to improve on? What support do we need? And we use those days to provide them.
Right.
And so we're really fortunate that we have 4 of those days throughout the year. And that communicates to me that it's important for us as a district that our people keep growing and learning and improving because that's what's going to help our students improve too.
Right. And we're
totally
modeling it for them, right? Like the kids are watching us all day, every day. And if we're stuck and stagnant, what is that going to say to them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with our late start Wednesday mornings, that continuous collaboration. Our kids aren't stagnant either. Like they're learning and growing and changing, and not every kid is on the same trajectory at the same time. And so looking at that data is so important so that teachers can adapt and modify and make sure all the kids are up to speed or learning what they need to learn.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, and listen, I do not misunderstand why I'm doing this, but I want to actually talk about some of the social media comments that we've gotten because parents don't understand, but some of the stuff that we've actually received via Facebook, and again, to be completely clear, I'm not trying to denigrate anyone. But these are the things that we hear, the feedback we get from the community. One of the messages was, as a former teacher, the board needs to look at high-performing districts in other states regarding professional development days. Common sense should lend Mondays as the appropriate placement. Wednesdays completely disrupt everything. What sense doesn't it make to interrupt a school week? None. So why? To be completely honest, why Wednesdays? And there was another one. Sorry, while I'm on my high horse, let me stay on my high horse. But there was one about Wednesdays too. Love this calendar. Love that the kids get to take. That's the wrong one. Wednesday collab days. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Wednesday collab days are seriously the worst. Almost as bad as the 15-minute late start headache. Why not give families the benefits of 3-day weekends or an extra day of Easter weekend like everywhere else in the country? So, what's your reaction to that? Why do we choose Wednesdays, and why do we do late start? Why do we choose to do the days that we do?
So our late start Wednesdays and our collaboration days are on Wednesdays. Our professional learning days are on Wednesdays.
Right.
And our district we always try. I think we're really good about listening to our community and listening to our people and taking their feedback and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
And the reality is Wednesdays are the best day. It's right in the middle of the week. Oftentimes, it's a great way to kind of break up the week. It doesn't end on the week or start the week. I think if you start, we've had them on Mondays where we start the week and then it just makes the rest of the week just that much more challenging.
Right.
Or at the end of the week, you're kind of exhausted from
Fridays.
Yes. And then attendance as well. That's also the reality of it.
I'm sure attendance is a huge deal.
And we're talking staff attendance because the kids are already out those days.
Right. Yeah. So staff attendance, it's so important for us that it's so important to our district that we train our staff, that we have the opportunity for like, okay, this is what we're working on. We need some support in this area. And so we've scheduled this time. We want the most of our people there. And so Wednesdays is where we get the most bang for our buck with attendance.
So there is intent behind the decision-making process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and, I've said this before, but I've had the privilege of working with nearly every school district in the state, and a lot of districts who've done the Wednesdays and Fridays with the attendance thing. Teacher, it's hard to be a teacher. You're in the classroom all the time. You can't go to doctor's appointments. It's hard to schedule things. And so it's not to speak disparagingly about our staff for not showing up on Mondays or Fridays, but you see that on your calendar. And if it's the only option you have, or you need to schedule something, that affects attendance. And so that, like you saying, it's so important to us that our teachers have that time that we make it Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Patricia.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I think we understand it's hard on families. I mean, I have kids as well. And so when we have those Wednesdays, right? Like I also work on those Wednesdays to prepare the professional learning for our math teachers. And so, my kiddos aren't in school, are not in school either. And so it is challenging. And I do want to acknowledge that. I get that. And so, our hope is that we've put those dates out well in advance so that families can plan ahead. Yes.
Yeah. And that's something, if you don't know, as listeners or parents, guardians, our board approves the following year or the next year's calendar, like usually in the springtime, well before, and they're posted, they're out there. So look at that stuff and plan ahead if you can. It makes everyone's life easier.
Well, and on the other end of the spectrum, while I'm on my high horse again, other end of the spectrum, there's some great comments. Love this calendar. Love that the kids can get to take finals before winter break, especially for high school students. They can actually relax during break and send a survey again, and I will again vote for this calendar. Or thank you, West Ada School District, for listening to the parents and changing the calendar so that our high school students don't have to try and study for the finals over Christmas break. I tell you what, as a student, so both my kids were K through 12 in West Ada. My daughter's still doing West Ada schools. I didn't understand it as an elementary, when they were in elementary, I didn't understand. And then in high school, I'm like, oh yeah, heck, trying to keep your brain engaged over Christmas break. Can you talk about that? The calendar itself.
Yeah, the actual school calendar.
Yeah, the actual school calendar. What goes into that thinking, and I am very happy with this change, but I could see where some elementary students may not feel that way.
Yeah.
Elementary parents,
Yes. I think there's just such benefit of having that clean break at the first semester ending before our December holiday. I think it just allows for students to wrap up their learning. I've talked to teachers that felt like they had two end of the semesters. They would have this end of the semester because they needed to do some review and kind of prepare students for when they were going to be gone for 2 weeks.
Sure.
And then they would come back again and have to spend a couple of weeks, refreshing their memory and getting them ready for that end of the semester. And so they felt like they were doing it twice.
Oh, sure.
And so now it's just like a really nice clean break. And then I'm also grateful that it didn't, we started earlier this year, but it wasn't that much earlier. So I think there was another comment in there where it was like, hey, it was only like 2 days earlier than last year or something like that.
Right.
And so that shift has just so much benefit because then there's that nice clean break. I think for our students, absolutely, they are not trying to study for their final exams or, remember what they were learning after they've been off for 2 weeks. But then our teachers as well, our staff as well, they can have a nice clean break. They can wrap up that semester and then come back fresh and ready to start brand new in January.
Well, and I have the privilege of going around with Dr. Bubb to meet with all of our student councils at each of our high schools. And those students, we talk to them about this. Dr. Bubb always wants to know what it's, give me the climate of being a student right now so we can help inform these decisions. And the kids were adamantly, hands down, this is the best schedule because they felt the same way. They said it's actually, everyone talks about, all the adults talk about mental health, kid mental health. We got to, this helps our mental health. Like we can actually relax and enjoy our family over the holidays and not have to be worrying about finals. And so I think it's really good to hear that. And some kids, they were like, well, my mom doesn't like it because it cuts into summer, or getting out earlier. It's, it's not quite hot enough in May or beginning of June. But, those are pretty simple things compared to clean learning breaks and demonstrating what and our kids' mental health. So the students overwhelmingly are in support of of the current calendar.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of zooming back out just real quickly, we got specific here for a minute, but that culture of learning, like, hey, we as teachers want to learn. We want to be learners ourselves. How important is that culture from your perspective?
For me, it is so important that we are just constantly learning. I really believe that when you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. And so being active in the research, being active in what are the educational trends, what does the research say, what are research-based high impact strategies or the effective math teaching practices that we have, our department has really anchored in because they're research-based practices, and just sharing that with teachers and just informing them like, hey, there's ways that you could do this maybe a little bit better, a little bit differently, a little bit more effective for student learning. And so when you know better, we hope that they'll do better. And so that's the idea, that we just keep learning, that we're open to that.
West Ada is proud to partner with Purposity, a platform that connects community members to the specific needs of our students and families. Through Purposity, you can make a direct impact by fulfilling essential needs like clothing, school supplies, and hygiene items. Join us in spreading kindness and making a lasting impact by signing up at purposity.com. You'll find the link in today's show notes.
Okay, Patricia, we were talking about professional development and best practices and things like that for your teachers and your math coaches going in on Wednesday mornings, and just really helping teachers grasp those concepts that they may not have time to research themselves. And it's not like it's Patricia and the consultant's idea of best practices. I mean, you attend professional development yourselves, and I know for a fact, as your friend, that you participate on some national organizations for math. Will you share about that just a little bit?
Sure. So when I say effective math teaching practices, I really mean that there are literally 8 of them. There's 8 effective math teaching practices as defined and researched by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And so we knew as a team that we couldn't, there's so many great ideas out there that sometimes can feel really gimmicky and can feel like just
like another initiative that's going to come and go, right?
Yes,
a fly-by-night kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes. And so I said, we can't do that. We can't just share these fun things that are just, absolutely do fun things in your classrooms, teachers, but like really what you need to spend your time on are things that are going to be really effective. So we like to talk about them as high impact strategies, and in math that looks like the effective math teaching practices. And so those are widely research based, lots of books and articles and blogs and things that are just written about them, about why they are effective. And so we really anchor in those, and we make sure that the things that we are sharing we can trace it back to one of those practices. And so now when we talk about them, even teachers agree, we can agree on this. Like, this is research-based stuff. And so we're asking you to do things like have mathematical discourse in your class. And it makes sense. Even establishing math goals, like that's where learning intentions and success criteria live, is what we're working on right now as a district. And so really just kind of anchoring back in that. And so it's so important for me. I have the privilege to take my team typically to a conference or two, because I want them to be exposed to what is going on out in math education. And I want them, specifically to bring things back. What do we need in our district? What more learning do we need? Go and find those sessions at this conference that we're attending, or our state also does a really great job of hosting webinars, book studies, and just we partner with the state as well. And so all of those things, we are just constantly gathering the information so that we can use that when we are working with teachers.
That's really
Our
cool.
teachers are really fortunate to have you, because a lot of districts are not able to do that at this capacity. So,
Yeah.
Super
Well,
cool.
and part of my job, I'm shifting gears a little bit, but one of the coolest things about my job is sometimes I get to tell stories about instructional rounds. That kind of, one of the first things I did with you when I first met you, Patricia, was the instructional rounds thing. Can you describe that? It was a really fascinating way for me, as I'm not an educator, my background's journalism, but as to look at that and go, okay, this is how we're teaching our administrators, and a way for them to learn and grow. Can you just describe? And I'll link that story in our show notes as well, just so that you all have that as viewers too. But can you describe instructional rounds? What is that, and why do we do it?
Yes. So our building leaders have such a high impact on student achievement.
Sure.
They are so influential. And so we thought, how do we support our leaders to understand what math instruction should look like in West Ada?
What good math instruction should
Yes.
look like.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we built an instructional rounds model. We read this book called, it's titled Instructional Rounds in Education. I read it so fast, I felt like they were talking about us.
Kind of borrowing from the medical field, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
kind of the idea, right? The rounds idea, sure.
Yeah. And so it's about calibrating what we want to see in the classroom and then really equipping our administrators with enough math instructional knowledge so that they can coach teachers and give them real feedback. If you talk to teachers, there's plenty of times that they've had an observation and gotten some feedback that was like not quite hitting the mark, or they're like, do you really know what you're talking about? And I thought, man, but those administrators are the ones that hold the key to their evaluations and really can say, hey, I need to hold you accountable to being a good teacher and those types of things.
Sure.
And so I thought, how can we help our administrators learn? And so this instructional rounds process, we gather administrators together, and a school will graciously host us. We find 2 teachers that are willing to have like 6 adults kind of come through the room.
I have to tell you, my son was in one of your classes, and he told me in his math class, he's like, Dr. Bub came in and he described you. I'm like, that was my friend Patricia.
Oh, yay. And so it's a lot of adults that come in. And so, but we use that classroom as a lab, and we tell the teacher, do not do anything differently. Like, this is not a show. You are not like, you don't need to do anything different.
This is just a normal day.
Yes,
Just do your thing. Yeah,
I always describe it as, please find me 2 teachers that we can learn from. I just need live instruction. I need live instruction. That's it. And then I do the legwork of kind of connecting with the teachers ahead of time. My team will say, hey, what are you teaching? What materials are you using? Help us to paint a picture of what we're going to be walking into, bringing the administrators in. We go through the whole thing. Like we bring up the classroom data because we want our administrators to understand, like, what's the makeup of this classroom? Are these students, should we be seeing more scaffolding because they need additional supports? Should we see more enrichment because these students are ready for the next level? And so what is the teacher doing to provide those opportunities? So we look at all of those things, and then we bring the leaders in, and then we have very specific notes that we want them to take. And then we just come back and we kind of debrief. What did you see? What were some of the celebrations? And what were some of the opportunities? And none of it is a criticism on that teacher. It's just like, hey, we're going to just pretend this is one of your teachers from your building. And what would be a piece of feedback you would give them? What guidance would you give them next?
How do we get better?
Yes. And we talk about it being small and sustainable. What's something little that they can work on and then you can continue to work on. And so we teach them that. And it's really been a great experience. We've had such positive feedback from our administrators, and we continue to do that.
Oh, it's so innovative. And listen, I don't want to blow sunshine at you, but it's so innovative. I'm like, this is may not be a question, but are other school districts doing this? I mean, this seems like it's a pretty innovative thing that we're kind of doing. How did that come about?
Honestly, we had the opportunity with so our elementary resource curriculum associates kind of introduced us to a process. And then I just kind of took that, I read, and I was reading the book. It all just kind of happened at the same time. It was like a happy accident.
Kind of a confluence of events.
Yes, I was like, I'm reading this book, and then there's an opportunity for us to participate in this with you. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I can see the structure. I can see the logistics. Let me build it for all the things that we're doing in West Ada, all of our foundational commitments, the things that are important to us and what we want to see. And so then we built it. And so I don't know if other districts are doing it, but I just thought this is a way for us to get to our leaders.
Well, and it's so good too, because every administrator has been a teacher. I mean, requirement in Idaho is that you have taught for at least 3 years before you can have your administrator certificate and do a program and all that stuff. But not every administrator has been a math teacher, and that looks different. And so I think that's kind of the key here with this is making sure that all administrators can understand what they're seeing.
Yes.
And how to better coach. Do we do that do we do instructional rounds with other content areas yet, or just math?
Yes. So last year we kind of field tested what would this look like if we did a combo of math and science.
Oh, okay.
And so we sat down with Chris Stoker. He's our math coordinator and
science coordinator.
Oh, sorry. He's our science
coordinator.
coordinator. Yes, I'm the math coordinator. And so he's
Who
our
also does a great podcast, by the way. But
yeah.
that's totally an aside.
Yeah,
but
he
anyway,
does have a great podcast.
Yeah.
And so we sat down with him and with his consultant, and we just said, hey, here's what the process looks like. What would you say about science? What would you want leaders to know about what the science classroom, what science instruction should look like? And so we field tested that. We did a little combo, and we're excited to do a little bit more of that this year with our high schools.
Well, how do you come up with the tools? I mean, it seems like you're kind of inventing this wheel as you go a little bit. How do you then make the tools to like, hey, how do we get better at this? Can you describe that process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we said, okay, what we've had a lot of we have a lot of tools in just education to observe.
Right. We have a statewide observation framework or evaluation framework.
Yes. And we had one also for math that came from the resources that we use. And then we just said, okay, we want this to be a learning opportunity for our leaders. And so it cannot be just surface. Like it's got to go beyond. Because I was thinking we have really great teachers in West Ada, and we have to be able to tell them something too. Like the best teacher that you have, like what feedback are you going to give them? How are we going to push them to be even better? We all want to grow.
Sure.
And so I said, we need an exhaustive look for document that just has everything. And so we said, okay, let's do it by just the structure of a class. What happens at the beginning of a class, the middle of the class, and the end of the class. And so in math, we call that launch, explore, and close. So what happens at the launch, what happens in explore, and what happens at the close of a lesson. And we took all the resources we have. So we took the effective math teaching practices, and we said, when do these practices happen? Do they happen at that beginning, middle, or end? We took John Hattie's research on visible learning and said, what are those high impact strategies and where do they belong in a lesson? Are they at the beginning, the middle, or the end? We just took a lot of those resources. We just said, okay, what are all the books? What's all the research? The 5 practices in math. I mean, we just took so much of the research and just said, these are all the things that we know are good math instruction. When would we see these things in a class? And this document is exhaustive. There's no way. I mean, I hope a teacher takes me up on this challenge and says, I'm going to do all these things in a class period. Yeah. I would love that.
And that's not expected. You're not expecting a teacher to do all of these things at once.
But it's like, these are all the possibilities. These are all the good things that could be happening in a class. And maybe if one of them isn't happening, that's something that an AP now can say to the teacher, hey, what about this?
Principal.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what about this? Could you maybe think about doing this in your class? Or like, have you ever thought? And so they could be doing a ton of great stuff, but we're looking to coach our teachers and continue growing them. And so we need more. And so there's no way that teachers have checked everything off of this box, but it gives our leaders something to talk about with our teachers that is really focused on effective math instruction. And so we did the same thing when we built the science one. And so I just said, hey, Chris, here's how I built mine. Like, how would you build yours? And like every content area
can do that.
Can do this. We have all of our research. We have all of
the scaffolding's there or whatever. You just need to fill in the appropriate holes. That's really cool.
So you've been doing this just for a little while now. It's not years of research, if you will, in doing this practice. Teachers have a very hard job. I can't even imagine because there's so much to think about, right, while you're teaching. What has their feedback been from this? From instructional rounds.
So I'm so transparent with them from the beginning, and there's a little bit of fear there because it's always nerve-wracking when
it's new. It's all the things.
Yes, and then an adult walks in your room. You feel like you're being evaluated. You might be worried about your students not acting appropriately. All those things, and so I really am very transparent with them from the beginning about why we're doing it. I really communicate to them, hey, I'm helping your leaders get smarter
so they can help
in math
you.
so that when they are coming to observe you, like they actually can give you feedback that's meaningful and that they understand the work that you're doing. And so I asked them to, we talk about what are you going to teach and what came before that and what are you planning to do next, so that I can field any of those questions that they're feeling like, they have some questions about stuff. And so they help me to paint that picture for teachers, the teachers help me paint the picture for the leaders.
Sure.
And then I am so tight with the schedule. I let them know there are going to be 6 people in your room from this minute to this minute. And like, I ask our group to hold to that. Like, you enter at this time and you exit at this time, so that the teacher has peace of mind that that's actually what happened. So I just,
we're going to do what we say we're going to do.
Yes. Yeah. And so the feedback has been really great. Like, they just have felt like, oh, that was exactly what you said it was going to be. And it was really easy and I didn't have to do very much. And the feedback that I do love from them is that they want to know what to work on. Yeah. And so I really have a standard rule of like, listen, we're going to just thank the teacher. We're going to share all the great things that they did, because we're not evaluating them. We're not, this isn't about them. It's really just like, I needed live instruction so I could teach the leaders. And so I'm not offering criticisms on your teaching, because I'm just grateful that we were there. But they're like, no, seriously, like, what was it? And so that's what, so this is the thing. Teachers want that. And when it's meaningful, when it's connected to instruction in their content area, and it really is research-based, like the feedback can be research-based, I think that teachers really appreciate that. So,
well, I don't care what industry you're talking about. If a leader is trying to learn and a leader is trying to improve herself or himself, that's going to improve culture. I mean, that's just true of any. Are you seeing that? Is that anything that you're seeing in terms of feedback from either teachers or leaders? I mean, I would think that would be part of the positive benefit. Is that fair?
Yes. I think we are getting better at that all the time. And this year was really evident that we are learning a lot of things and we're learning together, and there's some bumps along the road, and we don't know all the things and we don't know everything, right? And so
and that's okay.
And we're learning together. And so there's been some challenges with some of the things that we're working on, like learning intentions and success criteria this year. But it's all been so good, and we're learning, and learning is messy, and we're going to make mistakes, and we talk about we learn from mistakes. And so I think we are also learning that is what learning is about, and to give each other some grace. And so I think, yes.
Well, I would have to say too, in my observation, it's very, your team under Dr. Barrett, everyone is very thoughtful and intentional about the kind of learning and strategies and all that stuff. It seems like, and again, just observing, it seems like your team start out with, we have a plan for the year. We're going to focus on this thing. It's going to be consistent throughout the year. So everybody's kind of on the same page, rowing in the same direction. And if you have to shift a little bit along the way, but it doesn't seem, it's not willy-nilly, like, oh wait, never mind, that's a bad idea, we're not going to do that. I think you do your team puts a lot of thought and effort into that, right?
Yes, absolutely. We start thinking, at least a year in advance of what is next year going to look like. What are those learning progressions? What are the things that we want to teach our teachers? And we start to plan some of those ahead of time. Right. There are some coordinators that they're so good, they've got it dialed in, even before the school year starts. Right. And we are prepared with just what that vision is for learning for our teachers.
Well, every really year cool. It's not a new initiative. It's building blocks upon last year, right? It's not like, okay, wait, never mind. Everything we taught you last year and spent teaching you, throw that out the window. Because you see that a lot. I mean, We've been in education a while. You see that change throughout the national kind of thing. But
yes, I think districts are definitely guilty of having too many initiatives, too many things, and they might be disjointed. But what I appreciate about West Ada is we have our foundational commitments,
right? And
one of them that we really focus on in our work is best first instruction. Mm-hmm. And so the work that we're doing really aligns to that.
I've heard, real quick if we can, I've heard best first instruction. I mean, that's what we say all the time around here. I hear everybody. Will you elaborate a little bit on what best first instruction, just what that means?
Yes. So best first instruction really leans, and I hope I give a good description of this. It really leans towards this idea of this is learning that every student gets, every student deserves. It's every classroom. And so it's best first instruction. And there's more instruction beyond that. Maybe we need to support students that didn't understand it the first time, but we want to make sure that we capture the most students with high impact strategies, the first time that we teach it. So we want the best first instruction just to kind of make sure that all of our students,
doing it right the first time we deliver it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, getting it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Go to YouTube, search West Ada School District, and like and subscribe today.
Well, so Patricia, one of the very first projects we ever worked on together was the Math Symposium. Again, bringing in these amazing math minds from across the country. That was a very cool story I got to do. I'll link it again in the show notes for you. Math Symposium. What was that about? Why did we do that? How did we do that?
Oh my gosh. When I think of Math Symposium, like my face starts to hurt because I can't smile. It hurts to smile about it. That was probably like the most rewarding, my most favorite project that I ever had the privilege of working on. And so Math Symposium was a series of 10 Saturdays.
Wow.
Over the course of 2 years, and teachers committed to coming to all 10 Saturdays, full day sessions. And each Saturday I brought in a different guest speaker from, just the math education community, just really big names that, maybe our teachers otherwise wouldn't have heard from, but just to have just 10 back to back and just the impact that it's had. I mean, teachers still talk about it today, like, hey, when are we having another one? But it was just, it was an awesome project to be able to do. It was really such a privilege that all the stars aligned in education. I feel like this is something that everybody always dreams of being able to do. And then we were just so fortunate to be able to do that.
It was very fun for me as someone who's not an educator. I got fired up. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are thinking differently and they're teaching our teachers to think differently. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So really just opening their eyes to what math is much different than maybe we learned the way that we learned it or the way that we understand it. I think
it's problem solving.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, 2 + 2, right? There's problem solving in there.
Yes, absolutely. And this is not to say that there aren't algorithms or, things that we need to teach our students, but we really lean on how do we help students understand this conceptually. So we want to build, one of the practices is we want to build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding. And so how do we help students build that conceptual understanding so then the procedural fluency and the efficiencies that we want to get to are that we can get there. And so some of the biggest themes that we took away from Math Symposium is like, how do we get our students thinking? We want them to be thinkers. We want them to be problem solvers. And something I'm always telling teachers and the themes that came out of Math Symposium are, we want students to be able to answer any math question that they're given, but we can't give them every possible one and prepare them for every possible scenario.
Sure.
We have to give them the skills to look at a problem and have the confidence to say, I'm going to try something and kind of work my way through it. And so that was really cool to watch our teachers engage with just some of the great minds in math education and start to shift their understanding, shift their thinking, shift their pedagogy, and then take that and bring it to their PLC.
Right.
Bring the ideas.
Bring it back around to the whole Wednesday morning PLC
exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
Like,
here's what I'm doing kind of thing.
Absolutely. We would come and visit with teachers and they would all be talking about, what we learned on Saturday, but only one of those teachers was actually in attendance. And so they were always bringing back those great ideas and they were sharing the strategies that they were learning. And so it's just been really cool.
Oh man, I so wish I kind of want to go back to math. I'm sure I can figure out some way. I know some people. I can go sit in some high school math classes.
You could totally do it.
Learn some more foundational thinking. That's awesome.
Well, and I don't know, Patricia, the multiplying effect. When teachers teach other teachers, what is that? Can you describe that for us?
I think that is so powerful because we can bring guest speakers. We can have so Math Symposium, for example, we had just great people come, but now what we have are teachers that have taken those ideas and actually are doing them in their classrooms, having success with them, and then sharing that. And there is something really powerful about teacher to teacher I understand, like, hey, I'm a teacher too. I understand the realities of the classroom. I'm using this strategy.
You have
in my
automatic
classroom.
buy-in because you're a teacher.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
All the things.
And so there's something really powerful in that when, it's a teacher to teacher conversation, I'm having success with this in my classroom. My students are doing really well with it. Here's how I figured it out, even with all of the challenges of our jobs, and plan. And, they really help each other to kind of troubleshoot how you make it happen. So.
Right. Well, and I think you really hit the nail on the head earlier when you said when you were tutoring the students in your first job after high school, and just in your act of teaching your floodgates opened, and then you suddenly, knew how to do it. So for these teachers who are sitting in the math symposium and learning from these brilliant minds, and then they go and teach their colleagues, they might have those aha moments too. It's a really part of the learning process.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that.
Well, it was very cool for me as a non-educator to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I can literally see the neurons firing and connections being made for everybody. It was a super cool thing for me to observe.
Yeah. What was awesome too is each of those Saturdays, there was an assignment for the teachers to do. So they had to submit to me, and it was really simple. It was just like, take something you learned from this Saturday, implement it in your class, and just reflect on it and share, and then give me a little bit of evidence that you actually did it. Yeah. So I would get these great pictures of students engaging in this work, and these really great reflections from teachers, just putting it into their practice and seeing what really would stick with them and the things that they wanted to continue using. Literally yesterday, I had a teacher say, hey, when's the next math symposium? And so
let's do this.
Yes. So I know that it's had a really positive impact on our district and on our teachers, and that they enjoyed that learning. So
that's cool.
Well, and it's no coincidence that you're doing all of these great innovative things, and you're helping our administrators coach our teachers and all of that. And it shows in our scores, our state scores last year. Like, that's huge in our math and ELA ISAT scores. Like, you want to talk about that? Because that's pretty cool, the growth that we've seen in our district.
Yeah.
We have the hardest working teachers in the state. I'm just going to say it. I'm so proud of them. They want students to be successful in math, and it really shows. And so they have been working so hard. They know it's a priority for us because it is 100%. A measure of what they have learned in their class. And so we really value that. And so they've been working really hard towards that goal. And it's been awesome to see it 2 years in a row that we're ranked number one.
That's pretty cool. Well, as I was researching our conversation, I came across an amazing article from our friends at Idaho Education News, which we've done a podcast with them. And I'll link that story. But to your point, there are just some amazing instructors in West Ada. We've touched on this a little bit already, but can you expound a little bit more? Lifelong learning, it's so important, and why is that important from your perspective?
I think things change all the time, and when we're open to learning, it just helps us be better.
Humans in general, right?
Yes. And so we can talk about this through the lens of math, but I really think it's just the lifelong learning piece is really being able to adapt. And if you're open to learning, then we have to model that for our students, for our teachers, for our administrators, that there's always something new to learn, that we should be lifelong learners, because it's that continuous improvement cycle. If we're ever really feeling like, I don't have anything left to learn, you're really in a tough spot there. And so really just modeling that, just constantly creating opportunities for people to learn, taking advantage of the professional learning days, collaboration time, just all these times that we can be learning things. And so just taking advantage of that, bringing the learning to our staff, to our teachers, to our administrators, and just modeling that, because just being open to that learning, I think is really important.
Well, and it's not like we have some, I get to celebrate teachers' years of service and retirement celebrations and things like that. And we have some pretty awesome longevity in our district. And for our more veteran teachers, they're continuing to learn. It's not like, oh, you've been here for 25 years, you don't need to participate, right? I mean, they're keeping that open mindset. And I wouldn't imagine that there's a lot of pushback on the continued growth, right?
Yes. I love that we have a mix in our professional learning sessions of brand new teachers that are brand new to the profession, first year, all the way to the ones that are maybe on their retirement year, and the collaboration that happens between them of just like what works, what didn't work, what can I try. I feel like they just feed off of each other. I think our new teachers are really grasping for, like, I want all the sage advice from our veteran teachers.
Sure.
And then they come in with all this energy and these bright ideas,
fresh, new, fun things.
Yes, that just really, I think, uplift our teachers. And in our learning, I think what I hope that we're doing is we're affirming what our veteran teachers are doing. They're feeling affirmed in like the strategies that they're using, and then new teachers are learning new things.
Well, and don't take this the wrong way. I've heard many teachers tell me, oh, there's always a new fad, there's always a new initiative, yada yada yada. I really see the things that we've talked about here today. I mean, innovative, different ways of thinking. That is cool. How do you guard against, I'm not just going to do some new fad, but I'm really going to try and be innovative and help my teachers along? How do you guard against that? What's the mindset when you're going through that idea?
Yeah. That is so true. And it's very easy to just kind of be all over the place, and for what you're sharing and what you're teaching to feel really disjointed. And so for us, we really anchor in best first instruction, that foundational commitment. And what we've done is taken best first instruction and the effective math teaching practices, and we've aligned them. And so now we say, what are we teaching? Is it aligned to these? Is it aligned to best first instruction? Is it aligned to the effective math teaching practices? So that's what we do in math. And I know in all of our other content areas, it's really best first instruction is really where we're anchoring in. Is what we are teaching aligned to this foundational commitment that we've had in West Ada?
And that doesn't change. That is who we are, what we do year in, year out. It's aligned to those.
Yes.
And so we're going to take a breath, and before we do anything, we're going to make sure we're going there first, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool.
That's good practice.
Sorry. So I'm totally shifting gears on you, but I want to go back to something that I forgot to ask you about. Lesson study. It's a newest form of our learning in West Ada. Can you just give us a quick, not however long you want to take, but a synopsis of what that looks like?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really great segue into this new professional learning model that we're using for our secondary teachers primarily. But lesson study, it actually takes all the things that we're working on in our district, all the different, we'll call them initiatives,
Sure.
and it actually pulls them all together. And it creates an opportunity for how do all of these things work for a teacher?
In the real world.
In the real world.
Yeah.
In the real classroom. And so lesson study, what we do is we gather a group of teachers that teach the same course. And so most recently we had Math 3 teachers participate in a lesson study. And so we gather some teachers together and we decide a lesson that we're going to study. And we ask them, what's something that you want to work on that's related to an effective math teaching practice? And so is it productive struggle? Is it math discourse? Is it student engagement? And so we ask them, what's a problem that you're trying to solve in your classroom? What's something you want to work on? So teachers have that choice, and they're really engaged with, this is something I want to work on. And so we bring research to them. We bring some articles to read, and we say, hey, okay, one of our lesson studies, they wanted to work on productive struggle. So what does that actually look like in the classroom? Let's read together what that looks like. And it's all done in a day. We don't give stuff outside of this day because they've got stuff to do.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So we focus our day on that research question. We really dig into what does it mean to do that in your classroom. And then we go, okay, what lesson are we going to plan? And we literally plan out the lesson. We get to bring in data because one of our foundational commitments is data-driven response. And so how do we bring data into this conversation? We look at all of our curricular resources. We look at our curriculum. We check out the proficiency scales. We look at the assessment. How are we going to assess the students after this lesson? We plan the whole lesson together using high impact strategies, all those things. And then the next day, and we prepare all the materials. And then the next day, we literally go into one of their classrooms and we teach it. And all of us observe. And we watch kind of what's going on.
So all the teachers participating in this lesson study go into one classroom and watch.
Yes.
And who's teaching?
One of the teachers.
One of the teachers.
Yes,
okay.
one of the teachers. And so then we watch the lesson. And then we come back and we debrief and we talk about what was great. What do we need to adjust?
So
yeah.
Right?
And then sometimes they're like, oh man, like that question on the lesson, like that didn't land, or this activity that didn't land, and we'll adjust. So we'll take a second and we'll go, okay, what do we want to change? Let's just pick a couple of things. Let's not get like, we're not going to scrub the whole thing, but what are a couple of things that we could change? And so we do that real quick. And then we go teach it again so that they see the improvement. And then we have these 2 lessons that we can.
So you're kind of just whittling it down. Let's get this down where it really works, kind of thing.
And Absolutely. That's what teaching is, right? Like teachers, you're doing often the same thing over and over. So you can literally change from first period to second period. You can see, oh, that didn't land with these students. Okay, I can improve. And that's just that continuous improvement to make the instruction better for our students.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And then we collect data. And so we look at that data and we analyze it and we say, what did we want the students to learn? We ask those PLC questions. What did we want students to learn? How will we know if they learned it? And then, okay, what are we going to do now? Okay, so these are your students. What would we do the next day? We talk about, okay, these students got it. These students didn't. What would we need to do tomorrow to catch these students up? We talk about that whole thing. And the feedback from our teachers, it has been really great. Now, we hate to pull them out of class to do this. I mean, that's the trade-off. But once they get there, they're like, wow, like it's all the stuff that teachers want to be able to do, but they just don't have the time to do it. And so we just create.
So how do we empower them to give them the time and the ability to,
So the feedback's been really great. Like we get comments from them, we ask them for, how did it go? How can we improve the process? And they're really grateful. They learn instructional strategies that they want to put in their class. We've had teachers in that group, that lesson study group, that maybe didn't teach the lesson that day. They've invited us out and they're like, hey, I'm teaching the lesson tomorrow my class, do you guys want to come and see me teach it? And so like, that's just really cool that it's another PLC. It's another little community of teachers that are working together to make sure that they have great instruction, that they're analyzing data and doing what's best for kids. And so it's really cool because we think about how do we support administrators with instructional rounds, but then how do we get to teachers? Yeah. And that was our question. That was my team. And we were sitting down, we're like, okay, we're helping administrators through instructional rounds. Like, how do we actually reach the teacher level? And we said, okay, let's find something. And we actually partnered with BSU, the Regional Math Center. And they kind of gave us the idea. They're like, what about a lesson study? And so we talked through that process with them. And so we took their framework and really made a West Ada model of it.
That's really cool.
If this isn't an advertisement for teachers wanting to come to our district, I mean, it's
pretty cool.
It's pretty amazing the amount of support that we get.
Well, and this may be an unfair question, but as we're kind of wrapping up here, I mean, where have we flopped? I mean, because I always joke with my kids, listen, the best lessons I've ever learned were the times I've failed. Where have we flopped? And what did we learn from that? And you've talked about this on a micro level, but anything that comes to mind like, oh gosh, here's where I messed up and we could have done better. Anything like that comes to mind?
I think I love that whenever we flop, we like quickly are like, how do we make that better? And so
pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off. Yes. And then how do we go forward?
Yes. Yeah. I think an area that we're improving right now is just, we have so much that we want to teach teachers. We have so much. And so we're rethinking what we rethought this year. What do those professional learning days look like? So in the past, it's been those 4 days. 2 of them were district days and they were just content. And then the other 2 were building days. And so we said, okay, we have more. People need more. Building administrators want more time with their teachers. And so we said, let's try a new model this year. Like, let's revamp it so that we give an opportunity for more learning in lots of different topics. There's a need for supporting teachers with high impact strategies for ML students. Yeah. There's a need for our positive behavior supports in our classes. And so just how do we use the time that we have to teach more? And so I really love that was a problem that we had last year. And we immediately went to like, okay, how can we adjust our model so that we
can pivot?
Yes.
Let's do this better. That's so cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, when you say it like that, though, I'm like, 4 days, that's not enough. My kids can stay home by themselves. Let's get another day in there.
Right? Right.
Well, I just can't thank you enough, Patricia. I mean, for what you're doing and no kidding, just the innovative way you're thinking about doing things differently is pretty darn cool to see.
Again, I'm grateful that my kids are learning from your colleagues, our colleagues. with this kind of great people.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great.
Thanks for
I had
being here.
a lot of fun talking.
Did we miss anything? Any last little bit of
parting
information?
shots?
You don't have to. Before we wrap
Every
up.
once in a while, we do our job well.
Yeah, we cover all the bases.
I don't think so. I just really enjoyed having the conversation. It was an honor to be able to speak on behalf of my department and just to be able to share about the work that we do. We're so passionate about supporting teachers and supporting administrators, and we want student achievement. We want students learning at high levels. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to chat about this.
Thanks for doing what you do. Yeah, good to have you here. Well, I say it every time, but what an amazing guest. How great to have Patricia here.
I know. We are so fortunate, Ken, to work with some of the best and brightest people, and Patricia truly is one of them.
Well, she thinks differently, and it's really cool to see.
And our kids get to benefit, and that's the ultimate score.
Kids, teachers, all of us. It's pretty cool. Well, and as always, thank you for being here with us today as well. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon. If you listen on iTunes, please rate us there and leave a review. Or you can go to the youtube.com for the video version. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel there as well. And today's question, and we really want to hear from you. What's the biggest misconception you've encountered regarding professional learning days? And I hope no one got upset about the social media stuff we shared, but we get social media stuff all the time. And we want to have that interaction with you. Good, bad, ugly. That's how we get better.
And I think we've made it clear that we are a district of continuous improvement and serving our families and patrons well. And so please do engage with us and let us know. Maybe you didn't know. I didn't know when I started working here why they were on Wednesdays. Why our professional learning days were on Wednesdays. And it makes total sense. So.
And your perspective, again, your perspective when your kids are in elementary school might change. Mine changed from elementary school to high school. So it's a great conversation. Again, the biggest misconception you've encountered regarding professional learning days, you can send us an email at communicate@westada.org or just talk to us via social media as well. To learn more about the podcast, westada.org/podcast. And as always, I can't believe it's time to start thinking about holidays, but it's time.
It's here. I know.
This
happens to me every year. It's a surprise, right? Every year I say, I'm going to save for Christmas. And then November comes and I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to do that, wasn't I? But along those lines of saving and being prepared and maybe family issues, we're going to have one of our phenomenal school social workers come on and just really talk about how we can navigate the holidays in a healthy, productive way.
Yeah, because let's be honest, I love the holidays, but there's stress involved there as well. And so,
I bet a lot of the stress is maybe on Michelle too.
Way more stress on her than me. Thank goodness for her because she does way more than I do.
I mean, it's just the way it is.
No doubt about it.
I'm looking forward to that conversation because I think it'll be helpful for all of us.
It'll be a lot of fun. And as always, thank you for joining us. It's always great to have this conversation with you. And we will, of course, see you next time.
See you next time.